Welcome back, everyone. This is Trending Update USA, and I am Steffan. Thank you for joining us today as we dive into one of the most talked about and emotionally charged debates in modern tennis, a debate that has ignited fans across generations, divided former players, and placed immense scrutiny on one of the brightest stars of this era, Coco Gauff. Today's story centers on a former WTA player who has publicly labeled Coco Gauff's current Grand Slam tally as disappointing, drawing a bold and controversial comparison between Gauff and the legendary Serena Williams, a comparison that has reopened long-standing questions about greatness, expectations, timing, and the unfair weight of history placed on young athletes. Coco Gauff is still only in the early chapters of her professional career, yet she has already lived multiple tennis lifetimes in the public eye. From the moment she stunned the world at Wimbledon as a 15-year-old by defeating Venus Williams, the narrative around her changed instantly. She was no longer just a talented junior making waves, she became a symbol, a prodigy, and for many, the heir apparent to Serena Williams. That label, whether fair or not, followed her into every stadium, every interview, and every major tournament. With that level of hype, expectations did not rise gradually, they exploded overnight. Now, years later, Coco Gauff is a Grand Slam champion, a world #1 contender, and a consistent presence in the latter stages of the biggest tournaments in the sport. Yet for some observers, that is still not enough. The former WTA player at the center of this debate recently stated that Gauff's Grand Slam tally should be higher by now, especially when placed side by side with Serena Williams' achievements at a similar age. The comment has sparked intense backlash, passionate defenses, and a deeper conversation about whether it is reasonable, or even fair, to measure Coco Gauff's career through the lens of Serena Williams' historic dominance. To understand why this comparison is so explosive, we have to revisit what Serena Williams represented at her peak. Serena was not just a champion, she was a force that redefined women's tennis. Her power, mental toughness, and relentless will to win separated her from her peers in a way rarely seen in any sport. By her early 20s, Serena was already collecting Grand Slam titles and asserting control over the tour. Her dominance was visible, unmistakable, and often overwhelming. For a former WTA player who lived through that era, it can be tempting to use Serena as the ultimate benchmark, the standard by which all future stars are judged. However, tennis does not exist in a vacuum, and neither do careers. Coco Gauff entered a vastly different landscape. The women's game today is deeper, more physical, and more evenly matched than it was in many periods of Serena's career. There is no single dominant figure who wins everything year after year. Instead, the tour is crowded with elite athletes capable of beating each other on any given day. Aryna Sabalenka's power, Iga Swiatek's relentless consistency, Elena Rybakina's serving prowess, and the resurgence of experienced champions all contribute to a competitive environment where winning even one Grand Slam is a monumental achievement. When the former WTA player labeled Gauff's slam count as disappointing, the comment struck a nerve because it seemed to ignore this context. It also appeared to dismiss the pressure that comes with being Coco Gauff. Unlike Serena, who was allowed to grow into her dominance, Gauff was expected to arrive fully formed. Every loss is magnified, every near miss treated as a failure rather than a learning experience. When she reached finals and semifinals without winning, critics asked what went wrong instead of acknowledging how rare such consistency is for someone her age. Coco Gauff's own journey has been marked by resilience. She has openly spoken about struggles with confidence, adjustments to her serve, tactical growth, and the mental burden of expectations. She has changed coaches, refined her game, and continued to show maturity beyond her years. Winning her first Grand Slam was not the end of the story, it was the beginning of a new phase, one where expectations reset yet again, this time with the label of champion attached to her name. The Serena comparison, while understandable on the surface, becomes problematic when used as a measuring stick rather than a reference point. Serena Williams is a once-in-a-generation athlete, perhaps even once in a century. Comparing any player directly to her risks setting an impossible standard. The former WTA player's critique reflects a broader issue in sports commentary, where legends are used not to inspire but to diminish the accomplishments of current stars. Fans were quick to defend Gauff, pointing out that Serena herself followed a unique path. Serena faced her own challenges, including injuries, personal struggles, and periods of inconsistency. Her greatness was not linear, and even she had seasons where expectations were not met. Using a snapshot of Serena's early career to judge Gauff ignores the complexity of both journeys. There is also the question of longevity. Serena's greatness was built not only on early success but on sustained excellence over 2 decades. Coco Gauff is still at the very beginning of that timeline. Judging her legacy now is like judging a novel after reading only the first few chapters. The former WTA player's comments may reflect frustration with modern hype culture, but they also risk discouraging the very athletes who carry the sport forward. Coco Gauff's response, whether spoken or silent, has been one of professionalism. She has continued to focus on her tennis, letting her performances speak louder than debates. That approach mirrors the advice often given by Serena Williams herself, who has publicly supported Gauff and praised her work ethic and character. Serena understands better than anyone the weight of expectations, and her endorsement carries far more significance than any critique. This controversy also highlights a generational divide in how success is defined. For some former players, Grand Slam titles are the ultimate and only metric. For younger fans and analysts, consistency, impact, and growth matter too. Gauff's influence extends beyond trophies. She has become a role model, an advocate, and a global ambassador for the sport. That does not replace Grand Slam success, but it adds depth to her legacy. The women's tour today thrives on parity and unpredictability. Unlike eras dominated by 1 or 2 players, today's champions must navigate a minefield of elite opponents. Winning multiple Grand Slams quickly is harder than ever. That reality should be factored into any evaluation of a player's achievements. When the former WTA player compared Gauff unfavorably to Serena, it also raised questions about how we talk about young athletes. Public criticism from respected voices can shape narratives in powerful ways. It can inspire, but it can also harm. Coco Gauff has shown remarkable mental strength, but not every player can withstand such pressure. The sport must consider how to balance honest analysis with responsible commentary. Ultimately, Coco Gauff's story is still being written. She has already achieved more than most players ever will, and she continues to evolve. The disappointment expressed by the former WTA player says as much about unrealistic expectations as it does about Gauff's career. Serena Williams did not become Serena overnight, and neither will anyone else. As fans, analysts, and former players debate, Coco Gauff keeps working, competing, and growing. That may be the most Serena-like quality of all. Greatness is not defined by comparisons but by carving one's own path. Coco Gauff's path is unique, challenging, and far from finished. And that is the key takeaway from this controversy. Coco Gauff does not need to be Serena Williams to be great. She needs to be Coco Gauff, a player who has already proven she belongs at the top of the game, and who has many years ahead to build a legacy on her own terms. The disappointment some feel today may very well turn into admiration tomorrow, just as it has for so many champions before her. This debate will continue, as all debates in tennis do, fueled by passion, nostalgia, and high expectations. But one thing remains certain: Coco Gauff is not done, and judging her too soon may be the biggest mistake of all.